What the universe does to rare souls before sending them the right person. Carl Jung. Have you ever felt like you're being pushed through an invisible fire? Like life keeps stripping away everything you thought you needed? Everyone you thought you couldn't live without? What if I told you this isn't punishment? It's preparation? Carl Jung, one of the most profound minds in psychology, discovered something remarkable about certain souls. Souls that seem to walk a different path. Souls that experience deeper pain, longer solitude, and more intense transformation than most. He called them rare souls. And according to Jung, before the universe sends these souls the right person, their true counterpart, it puts them through a specific, almost ritualistic process. A process that breaks them down, builds them up, and fundamentally changes who they are. Today, we're going to explore the 7 stages the universe uses to prepare rare souls for the love they're meant to experience. And if you're watching this, there's a good chance you're one of them. So the question is, are you in the middle of this preparation right now, and you just don't know it? Let's find out. Before we dive into these stages, let's understand who Carl Jung was and why his insights matter so deeply. Jung wasn't just a psychologist. He was a mystic, a philosopher, a student of the human soul. He studied dreams, symbols, mythology, and the unconscious mind. He believed that each of us has a destiny written in the language of symbols and synchronicities. Unlike other psychologists who focused solely on the mind, Jung understood that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. He recognized that the universe, or what he called the collective unconscious, communicates with us constantly, guiding us toward our highest potential. And one of the most important journeys, according to Jung, is the journey toward what he called individuation, becoming your true, authentic self. But here's what most people miss. This journey is rarely gentle. In fact, for rare souls, it's often brutal. Why? Because rare souls are meant for rare connections, and rare connections require rare preparation. You can't experience a love that transforms you without first being transformed yourself. You can't attract someone who sees your soul if you haven't yet discovered it. So the universe, in its infinite wisdom, begins preparing you. Sometimes years in advance, sometimes through experiences that feel like they're breaking you. But they're not breaking you. They're breaking you open. Section 1. The Dark Night of Isolation. Stage 1. The Dark Night of Isolation. The first thing the universe does to rare souls is simple yet devastating. It isolates them. Not physically, necessarily. You might be surrounded by people. You might have friends, family, colleagues. But despite all of this, you feel profoundly alone. This is what Jung called the beginning of the dark night of the soul, a period where the external world no longer satisfies you, where surface-level connections feel hollow, where you can be in a room full of people and still feel like you're the only person on earth. Most people panic when this happens. They try to fill the void. They jump into relationships. They seek validation on social media. They distract themselves with endless entertainment, work, substances, anything to avoid the silence. But rare souls, they're forced to sit in it. The universe removes distractions. Friendships fade. Relationships end. Plans fall apart. Doors close. And you're left with the one thing you've been avoiding your entire life: yourself. Now, here's why this stage is necessary. Most people spend their lives running from themselves. They define themselves by their relationships, their achievements, their roles. I'm a mother. I'm a professional. I'm someone's partner. But who are you when all of that is stripped away? Jung believed that before you can truly connect with another soul, you must first connect with your own. You must face what he called the shadow, all the parts of yourself you've rejected, ignored, or hidden away. This is uncomfortable work. This is the work of sitting with your pain, your shame, your fears. This is the work of asking yourself the hard questions. Why do I feel unworthy of love? What patterns keep repeating in my relationships? What am I really afraid of? Who would I be if I stopped performing for others? The universe isolates you because it knows you'll never ask these questions if you're constantly distracted by others. And here's the beautiful truth. This isolation isn't permanent. It's preparatory. The universe is teaching you the most important lesson you'll ever learn. That you are complete within yourself. That you don't need someone else to make you whole. That you can sit with your own soul and find peace there. Because when you finally meet the right person, you won't cling to them out of desperation. You won't try to make them fill a void. You'll meet them as an already whole person, ready for a connection that's about expansion, not completion. Jung said it perfectly. The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. But you can't be transformed if you don't know who you are yet. So the universe gives you this gift of isolation, this sacred time alone. And though it feels like abandonment, it's actually the universe saying, I love you too much to let you settle for surface-level connection. I'm preparing you for something rare. But first you must become rare yourself. Section 2. The Shattering of False Identity. Stage 2. The shattering of false identity. Once the universe has isolated you, forcing you to face yourself, it moves to stage 2. It begins systematically dismantling everything you thought you were. Jung spent years studying what he called the persona, the mask we wear for the world, the carefully constructed image of who we think we should be, the version of ourselves we've created to gain acceptance, love, approval. For most of your life, you've been wearing this mask. Maybe you're the strong one who never shows weakness. Maybe you're the successful one whose worth is tied to achievement. Maybe you're the nice person who always puts others first, suppressing your own needs. These personas aren't necessarily false. They're just incomplete. They're fragments of who you are blown up to represent your whole identity. And the universe cannot send you the right person while you're still hiding behind these masks. So what does it do? It creates situations that make your persona impossible to maintain. The career you built your identity around collapses. The relationship you thought defined you ends. The reputation you carefully crafted gets damaged. The role you played in your family shifts. The beliefs you held for decades suddenly don't make sense anymore. This is terrifying, because when your persona shatters, you experience what Jung called an ego death. Not a physical death, but a psychological one. The death of who you thought you were. And in that space of not knowing, you feel completely lost. Who am I if I'm not this? Let me tell you a story that illustrates this perfectly. There was a man who spent his entire adult life building a business. His identity was completely wrapped up in being the successful entrepreneur. He worked 80-hour weeks. He measured his worth by his income. He posted about his wins on social media. This was who he was. Then the business failed, crashed, bankrupted, and he fell into a deep depression because his entire sense of self was gone. He didn't know who he was anymore. But here's what he discovered in that darkness. He wasn't his business. He never was. That was just something he did, not something he was. And in that space of uncertainty, he started discovering his true self. He remembered he loved painting, something he hadn't done since childhood. He started spending time in nature. He built genuine friendships instead of networking relationships. He learned to measure his worth by internal peace rather than external validation. 2 years later, he met his wife, and she loved him for who he actually was, not for the successful persona he'd been performing. This is the gift of the shattering. Jung understood that we cannot meet our true counterpart while we're still performing, while we're still presenting a polished, edited version of ourselves, while we're still trying to be what we think others want. The right person isn't looking for your persona. They're looking for your soul. But your soul can't be found until your persona is shattered. So the universe, in its fierce love for you, breaks down these false structures. It strips away the titles, the roles, the identities you've clung to, not to destroy you, but to reveal you. And yes, this process is painful. It feels like you're losing yourself. But you're not losing yourself. You're losing the costume you've been wearing. You're losing the character you've been playing. And underneath all of that, There's the real you, the authentic you, the you that's been waiting to be discovered. Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." The universe knows this, and it loves you enough to strip away everything false, so that when the right person arrives, they meet the real you. Not your resume, not your highlight reel, not your carefully curated image, your soul. Raw, real, and remarkably beautiful. Section 3. The confrontation with the shadow. Stage 3. The confrontation with the shadow. Now we enter the most challenging stage of preparation, the one that most people avoid their entire lives. The confrontation with what Carl Jung called the shadow. The shadow is not evil. Let's be clear about that. The shadow is simply all the parts of yourself that you've rejected, denied, or suppressed. The aspects of your personality that you learned were unacceptable. Maybe you were taught that anger is bad, so you suppressed it and became the peaceful one. But your anger didn't disappear. It went underground, into your shadow. Maybe you were taught that wanting attention is selfish, so you suppressed it and became the humble one. But your need for recognition didn't vanish. It hid in your shadow. Maybe you experienced trauma and decided that vulnerability is dangerous, so you suppressed it and became the strong one. But your need for softness and connection remained, buried in your shadow. For years, you've been unconsciously projecting your shadow onto others. You've been attracted to people who express what you've suppressed, or repelled by people who embody what you've denied in yourself. And this is precisely why your past relationships didn't work. You weren't seeing people clearly, you were seeing your own shadow reflected back at you. Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." This is profound. Your shadow has been controlling your relationship patterns without you even knowing it. So the universe, preparing you for the right person, forces you to confront your shadow. How does it do this? Through repetition. You keep attracting the same type of person. You keep experiencing the same patterns. You keep ending up in the same painful situations. Not because the universe is punishing you, but because it's showing you what you haven't yet integrated within yourself. Let me give you an example. Sarah kept attracting emotionally unavailable partners. Every single one. And she'd say, "Why do I keep meeting people who won't commit? Why am I so unlucky in love?" But when she finally did the shadow work, when she sat with herself and asked the hard questions, she realized something. She was emotionally unavailable too. She just expressed it differently. She presented as wanting connection, but deep down she was terrified of it. She chose emotionally unavailable partners because they were safe. They wouldn't get too close. They wouldn't see her completely. They wouldn't trigger her deepest fear of intimacy. Her shadow wasn't bad people finding her. Her shadow was her own terror of true vulnerability, disguised as bad luck. Once she confronted this, once she faced her fear and started doing the work of becoming emotionally available herself, everything changed. She stopped attracting those patterns. And eventually, she attracted someone who was ready for real intimacy. This is shadow work, and the universe will keep sending you the same lessons, the same patterns, the same painful experiences until you finally look inward and ask, "What is this showing me about myself? What part of me am I not acknowledging? What am I afraid to face?" Now, here's what's beautiful about this stage. When you finally integrate your shadow, when you accept all parts of yourself, even the messy ones, you become whole. You stop projecting. You stop repeating patterns. You start seeing people clearly for who they actually are, not as mirrors of your unconscious. And this is when you become ready for the right person. Because a healthy relationship isn't about two perfect people finding each other. It's about two whole people, people who have done their shadow work, choosing each other consciously. Jung wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." The universe knows this, and it forces rare souls to descend into their darkness, not to stay there, but to bring light to it, to integrate it, to own it, to stop running from it. Because when you meet the right person, they won't be perfect. They'll have their own shadow, their own wounds, their own messy humanity. And if you haven't faced your own shadow, you'll judge theirs. You'll reject them for the very things you've rejected in yourself. But if you've done the work, if you've confronted your shadow and learned to love yourself completely, you'll be able to meet them with compassion, with understanding, with acceptance. And that rare soul is what creates a love that lasts. Section 4. The pruning of toxic connections. Stage 4. The pruning of toxic connections. Once you've begun facing your shadow, once you're starting to see yourself clearly, the universe moves to stage 4. It begins removing people from your life. And this stage can feel brutal. Friendships that lasted years suddenly fall apart. Family members you were close to become distant. Romantic relationships end, sometimes dramatically. People you thought would be in your life forever just disappear. And you're left wondering, what's wrong with me? Why is everyone leaving? But here's the truth. Nothing is wrong with you. Everything is right. Jung understood that we become like the people we surround ourselves with. He studied what he called psychic contagion, the way we unconsciously absorb the energies, beliefs, and patterns of those around us. If you're surrounded by people who are emotionally immature, you'll struggle to grow emotionally. If you're surrounded by people who don't believe in deep love, you'll doubt it yourself. If you're surrounded by people who drain your energy, you won't have the vitality to recognize the right person when they arrive. So the universe, in its wisdom, begins pruning your garden. Not everyone is meant to be in your life forever. Some people are seasonal. They were there for a chapter, not the whole book. They were there to teach you something, not to stay indefinitely. And the sooner you accept this, the less painful this stage becomes. Now, this pruning happens in several ways. First, you outgrow people. You change. You evolve. You develop new values, new interests, new boundaries. And some people can't meet you at your new level. You try to maintain the friendship, but it feels forced. Conversations become surface level. You realize you don't have much in common anymore. This isn't anyone's fault. It's just growth. Second, people reveal their true nature. When you start setting boundaries, when you start showing up authentically, people who were only connected to your persona get uncomfortable. They might say you've changed, as if that's a bad thing. They might try to pull you back to who you used to be. They might even become hostile. This is actually a gift. They're showing you who they really are, people who preferred you small, manageable, and non-threatening. Third, the universe creates physical separation. Jobs end, requiring you to move. Life circumstances change. Opportunities arise in different cities, and suddenly physical distance does what emotional distance couldn't. It completes the separation. The pruning isn't just about removing toxic people. It's about creating space. Think about a garden. If a gardener never prunes, the garden becomes overgrown. There's no room for new growth. The flowers can't bloom because they're competing for sunlight and nutrients. Your life is the same. If your time and energy are completely occupied by relationships that don't serve your growth, there's no space for the right person to enter. The universe knows this, so it creates space. Sometimes gently, sometimes forcefully. And yes, this can be lonely. After the pruning, you might look around and realize your circle has shrunk significantly. You might have fewer friends but deeper connections. Less activity but more meaning. This is exactly where you need to be. Jung said, "Loneliness does not come from having no people around, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important." The pruning removes people you couldn't truly communicate with anyway. People who didn't see you. People who didn't understand your journey. And in that empty space, something magical happens. You become magnetic to your true people because you're no longer tolerating dysfunction. You're no longer accepting less than you deserve. You're no longer compromising your values to maintain connections. You're becoming unavailable for anything that doesn't align with your authentic self. And when you become unavailable for the wrong connections, you become available for the right one. Think about it. If you're constantly giving your energy to people who drain you, how will you have the clarity to recognize someone who replenishes you? If you're constantly accepting disrespect in friendships, how will you have the standards to attract a partner who honors you? If you're constantly surrounded by emotional chaos, How will you have the peace to build something stable? You won't. So the universe prunes, it removes, it creates space. And though it feels like loss in the moment, it's actually the universe saying, you deserve better. And I'm making room for it. Trust this stage, rare soul. Trust the endings. Trust the distance that grows between you and people who once felt essential. Because the right person won't fit into your old life. They're waiting for your new one. Section 5. The cultivation of self-love. Stage 5. The cultivation of self-love. After the pruning, the universe has cleared your life of relationships that no longer serve you. You enter a sacred space, a space of aloneness, a space of quietness, a space where it's just you and yourself. And this is where the real magic happens. This is where the universe teaches you the most important relationship you'll ever have, the relationship with yourself. Now, let's be honest. When people hear self-love, they often roll their eyes. It's become a buzzword, a hashtag, something influencers talk about while selling you products. But Carl Jung understood self-love as something much deeper than bubble baths and affirmations. He understood it as the process of becoming intimate with your own soul, of developing a genuine, compassionate relationship with every part of yourself, of learning to be your own source of love, validation, and peace. This is revolutionary. Most people spend their entire lives looking for someone else to make them feel worthy, someone to validate them, someone to complete them, someone to fill the emptiness inside. But Jung knew, if you don't love yourself, you'll use relationships as a drug. You'll become addicted to the feeling someone else gives you. And the moment they stop providing that feeling, the moment they're unavailable, distant, or imperfect, you'll panic. This is why self-love isn't optional for rare souls. It's essential. The universe cannot send you the right person until you've learned to love yourself. Not because the universe is withholding, but because without self-love, you'll sabotage even the healthiest connection. So how does the universe cultivate self-love in you? Through forced intimacy with yourself. Remember that isolation we talked about in stage 1? This is where it pays off. You're alone now, not by choice, but by design. And in that aloneness, you're forced to become the person you've been looking for. You have to comfort yourself when you're sad. You have to motivate yourself when you're unmotivated. You have to celebrate yourself when you succeed. You have to forgive yourself when you fail. You become your own best friend, your own parent, your own cheerleader. And gradually something shifts. You realize you don't need someone else to make you feel whole. You already are whole. You realize you don't need someone else to make you happy. You can create your own happiness. You realize you don't need someone else to validate you. Your own validation is enough. This doesn't mean you don't want partnership. It means you want it from a place of abundance, not desperation. Let me share a powerful example. Michael spent his 20s desperately seeking a relationship. He was constantly dating, constantly trying to make connections work, constantly afraid of being alone. Then, after a particularly painful breakup, he decided to take a year off from dating, a full year to focus on himself. At first, it was torture. He didn't know what to do with himself. He felt incomplete without someone texting him goodnight, without someone validating his worth. But over time, he started discovering himself. He started cooking elaborate meals for one. He started taking himself to movies. He started traveling solo. He started journaling, meditating, working out. He started learning guitar, something he'd always wanted to do but never had time for. And one day, about 8 months in, he had a realization. He was falling in love with himself, with his own company, with his own life. He looked forward to his evenings alone. He enjoyed his own thoughts. He felt complete. And when his year ended, he wasn't desperate to date anymore. He was content. He was peaceful. He was whole. That's when he met Emma, and their relationship was completely different from anything he'd experienced before, because he wasn't dating her to fill a void. He was dating her to share an already full life. This is what the universe is cultivating in you during this stage. Self-sufficiency, self-compassion, self-respect, self-love. Jung wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." And he's right. It is terrifying. It's terrifying to look at all your flaws and choose to love yourself anyway. It's terrifying to face your mistakes and forgive yourself anyway. It's terrifying to see your imperfections and accept yourself anyway. But this is the work, and the universe won't skip this stage. It won't let you move forward until you've learned this lesson, because the right person isn't coming to complete you. They're coming to complement you. The right person isn't coming to heal you. They're coming to grow with you. The right person isn't coming to save you. They're coming to build with you. But they can only do that if you've already done the work of loving yourself. So embrace this stage, rare soul. Embrace the time alone. Embrace the journey of becoming your own beloved. Because when you truly love yourself, when you've done the deep work of self-acceptance, you become magnetic to someone who will love you the same way. Completely, unconditionally, authentically. And that right there is worth every moment of the wait. Section 6, the awakening to higher purpose. Stage 6, the awakening to higher purpose. Once you've cultivated self-love, once you've learned to be whole within yourself, the universe moves to stage 6, and this stage is beautiful. This is where you discover your purpose, your mission, your reason for being here. Jung believed that each person has what he called a telos, ultimate purpose, that their soul is trying to fulfill. Not a job title or a career path, but a deeper calling. A unique contribution only you can make to the world. For most people, this calling remains dormant their entire lives. They're too distracted by survival, by societal expectations, by the noise of the external world. But rare souls, the universe awakens them to their purpose. And here's why this happens before the right person arrives. Because your purpose is yours. It's not dependent on a relationship. It's not contingent on finding a partner. It's not something that begins when you meet the one. Your purpose exists independently, and the universe wants you to discover it while you're alone, so that you don't make the mistake of making your relationship your purpose. This is crucial. Many people, especially those who are lonely and longing for partnership, fantasize about finally feeling fulfilled once they meet the right person. They think, once I find them, my life will have meaning. Once I'm in a relationship, I'll feel complete. But Jung understood this is a dangerous illusion. If you make your relationship your entire purpose, you'll suffocate your partner with expectations. You'll put pressure on them to be everything for you. You'll lose yourself in the relationship and wake up, years later wondering who you are. So the universe, in its wisdom, helps you discover your purpose first. For some people, this awakening is sudden, a moment of clarity, a flash of insight. They suddenly know what they're meant to do. For others, it's gradual, a slow unfolding, a series of breadcrumbs leading them to their calling. But either way, it happens during this preparation period. You might discover a creative passion you'd forgotten about. You might feel called to start a business, write a book, help others in a specific way. You might realize you want to teach, to heal, to build, to create. And when this awakening happens, everything changes. You're no longer waiting for your life to begin when the right person arrives. Your life has already begun. You're already living with purpose. You're already moving towards something meaningful. And this is incredibly attractive. People who are living their purpose have a certain energy about them. They're passionate. They're focused. They're lit up from within. They're not desperate for a relationship because they're already fulfilled by their work in the world. This is magnetic. Let me tell you about Elena. For years, she worked in corporate finance. It was fine. It paid the bills. But she felt empty. After a difficult breakup, she went through all the stages we've discussed. The isolation, the shattering, the shadow work, the pruning, the self-love. And somewhere in that journey, she remembered something. She used to love painting as a child. It was her escape, her joy, her medicine. So she started painting again. Just for herself. No expectations. But as she painted, something inside her came alive. She felt connected to something larger than herself. She felt purposeful. She started sharing her art online. People resonated with it. She started getting commissions. Eventually, she left her corporate job to paint full-time, and she was terrified but also exhilarated. Because for the first time in her adult life, she was living her purpose. She wasn't thinking about finding a partner. She was too busy creating, expressing, contributing. And that's when she met Daniel. He was an artist, too. He understood her devotion to her work. He had his own purpose, and they came together not as two empty people trying to fill each other's voids, but as two whole people sharing their purposes. This is the beauty of this stage. When you discover your purpose, you stop looking for someone to give your life meaning. Your life already has meaning. You're simply looking for someone to share it with. Jung wrote, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." But notice, he said two personalities, two separate, distinct, purposeful individuals, not two halves trying to become whole, not two empty vessels trying to fill each other. Two complete people, each living their purpose, choosing to intertwine their lives. This is what the universe is preparing you for. And this is why discovering your purpose comes before meeting the right person. Because the right person isn't someone who completes your story. There's someone who complements your story. There's someone who has their own story, their own purpose, their own mission. And together you create something even more beautiful. So if you're in this stage, right now, if you're starting to feel pulled toward something, if you're discovering a passion, if you're sensing a calling, lean into it. Don't wait until you meet someone to pursue it. Don't put your purpose on hold for a relationship that hasn't even arrived yet. Chase your calling now. Build your dream now. Express your gifts now. Because when the right person shows up, they won't distract you from your purpose. They'll amplify it. Section 7, the final purification. Stage 7, the final purification. We've arrived at the final stage. The one that happens right before the universe sends you the right person. And it's the most intense. Jung called this the final purification, the last test, the ultimate refinement. After everything you've been through, the isolation, the shattering, the shadow work, the pruning, the self-love cultivation, the purpose awakening, you might think you're ready, but the universe has one more challenge for you. One final fire to walk through. This stage usually comes in the form of a last lesson, a situation, or person that mirrors everything you've learned, testing whether you've truly integrated the wisdom. Maybe it's someone who could have been right for you a year ago, but now you can see clearly isn't aligned with your values. Maybe it's a temptation to fall back into old patterns, old relationships, old versions of yourself. Maybe it's a situation that would have devastated you before, but now you handle with grace. This final purification is the universe asking, have you really changed? Or will you revert back to your old self when tested? And here's what makes this stage so difficult. It often feels like the right person. It looks like what you've been waiting for. But something is slightly off, and you have to trust yourself enough to say no, even when you desperately want to say yes. This is the test of discernment. Can you tell the difference between someone who's almost right and someone who is right? Can you wait for true alignment instead of settling for close enough? Can you honor your standards even when you're tired of waiting? Let me give you an example. After 3 years of being single, after doing all the work, after becoming the woman she always wanted to be, Jessica met someone. He was attractive. He was successful. He was interested. And part of her was screaming, "Finally! This is it!" But something felt off. Small things. The way he talked about his ex. The way he avoided certain conversations. The way he was inconsistent with his communication. The old Jessica would have ignored these signs. She would have made excuses. She would have convinced herself it was fine because she was tired of being alone. But the new Jessica, the purified version, couldn't ignore it. She sat with it. She trusted her intuition. And after several weeks, she ended things. It was painful. She cried. She questioned herself. Had she just let go of the one? But deep down, she knew he wasn't the one. He was the final test. 3 months later, she met Mark. And the difference was undeniable. Everything that felt forced with the previous guy felt effortless with Mark. Everything that felt off before felt aligned now. This is the final purification. The universe sending you something that looks right to see if you've learned to recognize what actually is right. And when you pass this test, when you choose your standards over your loneliness, your intuition over your desperation, your truth over your fear, something shifts in the universe. You've proven you're ready. You've shown that you won't settle, that you won't compromise, that you won't betray yourself for comfort. And that's when the right person arrives. Not because the universe was withholding, but because you weren't ready before. You would have sabotaged it. You would have brought your old patterns. You would have missed the gift because you weren't yet able to receive it. But now you're ready. So here's what we've learned today. The universe prepares rare souls through 7 distinct stages. 1. The dark night of isolation, where you learn to be alone with yourself. 2. The shattering of false identity, where you discover who you really are beneath the masks. 3. The confrontation with the shadow, where you integrate all parts of yourself. 4. The pruning of toxic connections, where you release relationships that no longer serve your growth. 5. The cultivation of self-love, where you become whole within yourself. 6. The awakening to higher purpose, where you discover your unique calling. 7. The final purification, where you prove you're ready by honoring your standards. And if you're going through any of these stages right now, I want you to know something. You're not being punished. You're being prepared. Every painful moment, every lonely night, every difficult lesson, it's all part of the universe sculpting you into someone capable of experiencing a rare kind of love. Because rare souls don't get ordinary love. They get transformative love, sacred love, soul-deep love. But that kind of love requires preparation. Jung said it beautifully. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And that's what this journey is about. Becoming who you truly are so that the right person can recognize you, so that you can recognize them, so that when you finally meet, it's not 2 broken people trying to fix each other. It's 2 whole people choosing to create something extraordinary together. So trust the process, rare soul. Trust the isolation. Trust the breaking. Trust the shadow work. Trust the pruning. Trust the self-love journey. Trust the purpose awakening. Trust the final tests. Because on the other side of all of this, the right person is waiting. Not to complete you, you'll already be complete. But to walk beside you, to grow with you, to love the real you, the you that emerged from the fire. And that love will be worth every single moment of the wait. If this video resonated with you, if you recognized yourself in these stages, do me a favor. Drop a comment below telling me which stage you're in right now. Are you in the isolation? The shattering? The shadow work? Let's create a community of rare souls supporting each other through this journey. And if you found value in this video, please hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. We dive deep into Carl Jung's wisdom, spiritual psychology, and the profound journey of becoming your authentic self. Click the bell icon so you don't miss future videos that could transform your understanding of yourself and your relationships. And remember, the universe hasn't forgotten about you. It's preparing you. Trust the timing of your life. I'll see you in the next video, rare soul. Until then, keep becoming.